Tonight on Fox 9 Now in HD, a red air quality alert is wildfire smoke is just filling up the valley tonight, and some schools are actually keeping students and athletes inside. But first,
we cannot admit everyone who would like to come here. It's just that simple.
As expected, President Trump rolled back the so-called Daca program today, the move leaving roughly 800,000 people in limbo and Congress with 6 months to act.
Watching Fox 9 Now News at 9. It's about time.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Glad you can see me. Good thing we're not outside. I'm Roland Barris. Tonight's big story, a program shielding immigrants who came to the United States illegally as children is winding down. The president ordered his attorney general today to make the announcement and put the problem squarely in the lap of Congress. But a late tweet from the president also states he will revisit the issue if Congress doesn't act in 6 months. Fox's John Roberts has more.
The program known as Daca that was effectuated under the Obama administration is being rescinded.
The decision was President Trump's, but it was left to his Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, to roll it out.
The Department of Justice has advised the President and the Department of Homeland Security that the Department of Homeland Security should begin an orderly, lawful wind down, including the cancellation of the memo that authorized this program.
Former President Obama, who implemented the DACA program in June of 2012, issued a sharply worded statement saying, quote, "To target these young people is wrong because they have done nothing wrong." He described what President Trump decided as self-defeating and cruel. Not surprisingly, the president disagreed.
I have a love for these people, and hopefully now Congress will be able to help them and do it properly. And I can tell you, in speaking to members of Congress, they want to be able to do something and do it right.
President Trump had called DACA an unconstitutional executive overreach. But rather than terminate the program outright, he set an expiration date of March 5th, 2018, giving Congress 6 months to come up with a legislative fix, which, given divisions in the Republican Party, may not be easy.
I don't think the American people elected Congress to do things that were easy. They elected them to make a government that works.
Unless and until Congress comes up with a solution, today's order means no new applications for DACA status will be accepted after today. Applications already in the pipeline will be processed. Renewal requests already received will be adjudicated on a case-by-case basis. Dreamers whose benefits expire by March 5th have until October 5th to file a renewal request. No new renewal requests for benefits that expire after that will be accepted. Diana Plattis, whose family just lost everything in Hurricane Harvey, now faces an even more uncertain future.
We're going to continue to fight, and we're going to continue to push forward because we're not cowards. We know that we are doing and contributing the best that we can to this economy, to this country.
The first shot at legislation is being proposed by Republican Senator Lindsey Graham and Democrat Dick Durbin, who consulted with President Trump's senior advisor Jared Kushner to come up with the DREAM Act. The White House says it wants more than just a fix to DACA, responsible immigration reform that would likely include funding for a border wall and other items. Graham said today he would deliver.
I will not stop with the DREAM Act because that does incentivize future illegal immigration. I am committed to fixing this problem once and for all.
Some conservatives are predicting a civil war in the Republican Party in the debate over DACA, one that could end up with Republicans losing control of the House next November. Senator Lindsey Graham intimated as much today, saying that the problem won't be in the Senate, the problem will be in the House. At the White House, John Roberts, Fox 9 Now.
Interesting developments. Now, Javier Palomares, the head of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, stepped down from the president's National Diversity Council in the wake of the decision today. But most state officials here in Idaho seem to agree with Mr. Trump. Governor Butch Otter saying the program was an example of presidential overreach, and Idaho Attorney General Lawrence Wasden adding that it's time for federal lawmakers to step up and pass a law that takes into account the needs of everyday families. Those comments mirroring a statement from Idaho Congressman Raul Labrador, who is chairman of the House Immigration and Border Security Subcommittee. Labrador says he opposes DACA because it is unconstitutional and undermines the rule of law. He says the DACA repeal creates leverage for larger reforms to, quote, fix our broken immigration system. Other Idaho leaders are concerned about the president's actions, of course. Leo Morales is the executive director of the ACLU Idaho. He joins us now tonight to give us a little more perspective on Daca and its impact here in Idaho. Thanks for being here, Leo. How many people are affected by Daca in the state of Idaho?
Well, the last numbers we have is roughly 3,100 Idahoans will be impacted. Idaho actually is one of the states that has the highest numbers per capita with regards to comparison to other states across the country.
So what are you telling folks? Are they, obviously, I'm sure there are a lot of people very concerned about their future in the United States. What can you tell them to do at this point? Is it just a holding pattern?
Well, the president's announcement today is really at odds with our American values of family, opportunity, and the dream, right? And so what we're telling community members is to not give up, to continue to fight. They are aspiring Americans, and this is the only home they truly do know. And so it's up to Congress now to resolve this issue in a way that's permanent.
President Obama called this decision cruel. Why is it cruel?
The individuals that this will affect are essentially young men and women that have lived here all their lives. And to now terminate this program really puts in uncertainty, it puts the program in disarray, and it may potentially deport individuals to a country that they don't really know.
You're with the ACLU, legalities come into play. Are there lawsuits that could be filed over this? Is this something that could apply to?
Well, there are definitely different groups that are looking at legal challenges to this issue. For the ACLU, our mission is to protect every person's constitutional rights, regardless of immigration status. So we will be looking at this issue very closely, particularly with regards to the due process rights that immigrants have in this country.
The president says one of his arguments is that Daca takes American jobs. Is he wrong?
You know, at the heart of this issue, too, is the fact that we have young Americans, young aspiring American students that have come here as children and essentially searching what most immigrants have searched for in the past, and that is opportunities at success, and that's at the heart of this issue.
The American dream.
Exactly.
Leo Morales from the ACLU Idaho. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
This is your Fox 9 Now forecast.
The big issue across the Northwest has been the smoke. It has been brutal during the day today with the heat as well, although the heat didn't feel as hot, and it wasn't as hot today because the fact that smoke was keeping that temperature down. 90 for the high temperature today, 83 is normal. That thick smoke cutting down, we would have been up to close to 100 degrees near that record had we had brighter sunshine today. But still hotter temperatures to the west, 98 in Burns, 99 in Rome, Oregon. Slightly cooler to the east, but smoke everywhere. That's been the big issue. We have a red air quality alert, not orange. I'd said orange earlier tonight by my mistake. A red air quality alert in effect for the day tomorrow. In fact, it's until further notice, until we get better air quality coming on in. That may start to improve during the day Thursday. We'll have to see what it is for Thursday, but a red air quality alert in effect, a red flag warning in effect for high fire danger. We may have new fires. Smoke is coming down from fires from the north and wrapping around from Oregon fires. We need the wind to switch directions to the south to clear the smoke away. I do believe that is going to happen by Friday, maybe even late on Thursday afternoon. 66 degrees for that temperature overnight tonight. More smoke when you wake up tomorrow. Now, computer charts have 99 for the high temperature tomorrow. If we keep the thick smoke we had today, we'll be back down to that lower mid 90s likely, with a light breeze only just kind of stirring the pot of smoke. That is it. We have a monster hurricane in the Atlantic just about to make landfall on a tiny island. I'm going to talk about that, plus the prospects of Irma hitting the U.S. coming up.
All right. Thanks, Scott. Well, if you just can't get enough of that sitting around the campfire smell, you're obviously in luck. But the rest of us are sick of the smoke and the red air quality alert that's raising health concerns for some here in the valley. That is the understatement of the day. Officials say the air quality right now is unhealthy for everyone, and they recommend you stay indoors if at all possible. The DEQ says our current air quality readings are the worst they've seen all year.
We've seen some high numbers earlier, but not to the level we're seeing right now. We're seeing some fairly high hourly levels with the anticipation that we'll continue to see them for the next couple days.
Health leaders say air quality levels may not begin to drop until later this week. Playgrounds and practice fields across the valley were empty, though, today as the poor air quality forced school officials to move recess, PE, and sports practices inside. All right, so with all that smoke that's pouring in from wildfires burning all across the West, just all over California, Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. So here is a quick rundown of some of the biggest and closest fires right now. Crews are making progress, by the way, on the Bearskin fire burning near Deadwood Reservoir. Unfortunately, red flag warning remains in effect tonight. It is 19,000 acres, lightning caused, and it may be contained, hopefully, they're hoping, around October 1st. Campgrounds near the Bearskin fire zone are closed to the public, including those near Deadwood Reservoir. A lot of them there. And the Highline fire, which was started by lightning, is now 67,000 acres. It's burning in heavy timber in the Payette National Forest, and it's only going to get worse. Red flag warning in effect through tomorrow night there. As long as it doesn't affect structures, there are some they're worried about, but for the most part, officials are going to let it burn. Firefighters are hoping for containment maybe in mid-October. Over in Oregon, the Eagle Creek fire is among the worst in the West and responsible for a lot of our smoke right now. The blaze has grown to almost 5,000 acres, spreading from Oregon across the Columbia Gorge to Washington state with almost no containment. Meanwhile, the La Tuna fire in L.A. proving a challenge to firefighters who are finally turning the corner on what may be the worst fire ever in Los Angeles County. Further north, near Fresno, the Mission North fire threatening nearly 200 homes and buildings.
It's just really scary to know that what's around you is going to go up in flames like that.
And up in Montana, crews are working to battle back the flames of the Sprague fire there. With more than 80 large wildfires burning on more than 1 million acres in the Northwest, NIFC is mobilizing active duty military personnel to serve as firefighters to assist in the suppression efforts. And they've got a lot of training to catch up on. The current national wildfire preparedness level is at 5. And that means a high level of wildfire activity. And with nearly 28,000 firefighters already working out there, manpower has been stretched thin. The Department of Defense will provide 200 military members, all from Washington, who will be trained throughout the week to assist in the efforts. The soldiers will be organized into 10 crews of 20 people each and will be sent to the Umpqua National Forest first in Oregon.
One of the reasons that we're experiencing such a high level of fire activity over such a widespread area right now is that we've been receiving lightning almost continuously for the last several weeks. And so we're having to devote a lot of our resources to those kinds of lightning-caused fires that we can't prevent.
And while they're working hard to put out the fires, they ask the public to help by taking steps to avoid those human-caused fires, like making sure campfires are fully out and chains on trailers are not dragging. Those pictures are unbelievable. Well, a man jumped from a second-story window after a fire broke out in a Boise apartment complex. It all happened today just before 2 o'clock in the afternoon off Fairview Avenue near the connector. Fox 9 Now's Lacey Darrow joins us live from Boise with the details on that. Lacey?
Roland, fire crews wrapped up not long ago here. You can see they put up some crime tape as well as kind of boarded off some of the windows, trying to keep some of the neighbors out here out of this area. But a lot of people are still wondering what exactly happened today to cause all this to go up in flames.
Bystanders stood back and watched as flames ripped through several units of the Central Point Apartments Tuesday afternoon.
When we arrived, there was 4 of the apartments that were in active fire.
Even with 30 firefighters and 8 engines working together, the fire quickly spread. It wasn't until 7 apartments were damaged that fire crews were able to knock it down. Although none of the crews were injured, one man inside the burning building was hurt.
They had jumped from the 2nd story and they sustained burns and possibly a broken leg.
While it's unclear how long it'll take before residents are able to get back into their homes, fire crews say it will likely take time.
Probably won't be there tonight, and it looks, like it could be a while before they're able to be back in there.
As of now, no word on what exactly caused the fire.
We have a fire investigator on the scene right now that's trying to determine that.
Boise Firefighter Burnout Fund as well as the Red Cross are working together to make sure that anyone who has been displaced from this fire has a place to sleep. Reporting live in Boise, Lacey Darrow, Fox 9 Now.
All right, thanks, Lacey. This is the second apartment complex fire in Boise in less than a week. Last Friday, flames tore through the Parkwood apartments on Clark Street, sending up in smoke plume that could be seen for miles. A number of families were displaced. Investigators say the cause of that fire still undetermined, but they think it was most likely started by something left smoldering, like perhaps a cigarette butt. A guilty plea in the murder of a Boise State University student to tell you about tonight. 62-year-old Bruce Marchant pleaded guilty to first-degree murder today, to killing Sierra Bush last October and dumping her body near Idaho City. Marchant then fled to New York and was extradited to Idaho last spring. In return for his plea, prosecutors agreed to drop the rape and kidnapping charges against him. When sentenced, Marchant could receive up to life in prison without parole. Fox 9 now has much more news. In our second half hour, the crowds have come and gone, but one Boise teacher is still studying our recent total solar eclipse. Some amazing pictures to show you. And next on Fox 9 Now.
Lawmakers return to the Capitol with a long to-do list of items to get done before the end of September. I'm Mike Emanuel on Capitol Hill. I'll have that story coming up.
Right now in America, Daca is just one of many items confronting Congress as it returns from its August recess. Lawmakers facing a massive to-do list with very little time to get things done. And the president just made their list longer with that Daca decision. Fox's Mike Emanuel reports.
It is vital that we reduce the crushing tax burden on our companies and on our workers.
The House is due to get things started tomorrow by voting on President Trump's initial request of $7.85 billion for Hurricane Harvey relief. After the Senate votes, it will likely have a debt ceiling increase attached to it.
These are the president's immediate priorities: pass disaster relief, prevent a default, and fund the government. We have to get all three of these things done, and we have to do it very quickly.
Democrats are mocking the idea of combining hurricane relief money with the debt ceiling.
I don't know why we cannot deal with these issues in their own right. We have to help the people of Texas and Louisiana and other parts of the country that suffered from this catastrophe.
Some conservatives are expressing concerns about being jammed with the debt ceiling, a government funding extension, and Harvey money being packaged into one bill.
This is like a punch in the stomach. We're very frustrated to hear that even in the Senate we may be tying not only the raising the debt ceiling but also a continuing resolution. That's very frustrating.
With the House and Senate both scheduled to be in session just 12 legislative days in September, Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy notes lawmakers cannot afford to waste time.
We've got a lot of busy things happening here. So we have to deal with Harvey, we have the debt ceiling, we have a continuing resolution which will be just about a 3-month continuing resolution. So you will deal with the wall a little later in the year.
And Congress must pass a new budget if it is going to do tax reform with a simple majority vote in the Senate. Flood insurance, children's health, and reauthorization of the FAA all require congressional action by the end of the month as well. The president also put pressure on the Senate Majority Leader during recess, tweeting, "Mitch, get back to work and put repeal and replace, tax reform and cuts, and a great infrastructure bill on my desk for signing. You can do it." There's also the issue of scrapping Obamacare after the Senate came up one vote short in July. Lamar Alexander, who chairs the Senate Health Committee, issued this warning. 9 million Americans whose premiums have already skyrocketed may see their premiums go up even more unless Congress acts to stabilize the individual market before the September 27th deadline. Alexander and his committee will hold a bipartisan health care reform hearing Wednesday to see if they can come up with some solutions to help stabilize the insurance markets in order to help consumers who have gotten hammered. On Capitol Hill, Mike Emanuel, Fox 9 Now.
The Supreme Court is set to take a high-profile case this fall involving a Colorado baker's refusal to bake a wedding cake for a same-sex couple. The case reaches all the way back to 2012 when bakery owner Jack Phillips refused to make the cake, citing his religious beliefs. The couple filed a complaint, and the Colorado Civil Rights Division and a state appeals court found in their favor. So now the case is headed to the highest court in the land. Though the case is 5 years old, the issue continues to crop up. Just last week, a baker in California made waves for refusing to bake a cake for a same-sex couple. She says doing so would violate her conscience and her beliefs.
Our business is God's business. We work for Him. There are certain things that violate my conscience, and my conscience will not allow me to participate in things that I feel are wrong.
Miller says instead of filling the order, she called another local baker to see if they would do the job.
Coming up in weather, monster storm Irma is just about to make landfall, but will it hit the United States? And if so, where? We'll have that in the latest forecasts coming up.
This is your Fox 9 Now forecast.
All right, let's take a look at this monster storm, Hurricane Irma, a Category 5 storm wind, 185 miles per hour. If it goes up and increases the velocity to 190, it will be the largest hurricane ever recorded in the Atlantic Ocean. Incredible structure of this storm system. When you see that core perfectly round, and you also see clouds going out like this, these thin cirrus clouds without being disrupted by wind, that's a sign it's in a perfect environment for developing, provided there's warm enough ocean water, and the water is going to get warmer as it gets closer to the United States. The island of Barbuda right here is just about to be hit by the eye wall here in the next couple of hours. And then you've got the British Virgin Islands up in this region here as it tracks off to the north and the east. And this will graze north of San Juan, Puerto Rico as it moves on through. This is a monster storm indeed, a strong Category 5 storm. It only takes winds of 157 miles an hour to hit Category 5. We're at 185 mile per hour sustained winds, gusting to 215 miles per hour. This is very much like some of those typhoons that are occurring in the eastern hemisphere heading towards Guam, where the water is very warm and you get those powerful storms. So this is a huge monster of a storm that's going to track on off to the north and to the west. I'm watching the pressure drop here. It hasn't gone up. That means it continues to intensify. So we take a look at the spaghetti plot. This is all computer models, or several computer models, hurricane forecast models. They're all projecting something different here. You see the cluster of them. That's high confidence. Storm will head in this direction, although this is what we call an outlier, as is this. So it's likely not going to do this. But notice how when we get to this point, everything starts to turn towards the north. What the trend that I'm seeing is this core was a little further west, is now shifting more towards the east, which then would affect the east coast of Miami and points up the east coast of Florida here. We're going to have to watch this. We push this on further ahead. There's one bringing it into the Gulf of Mexico, hitting the Florida Panhandle. The others are heading more towards either central Florida or the east coast of Florida. But this turn is very, very difficult to forecast. That's the key. That's the difficult issue for the National Hurricane Center. There you see the storm wind gusting to 215 miles an hour. We've got a couple of computer models running here. One has the track going to the west. This one has the track going to the east. The Hurricane Center forecast is 8 p.m. Sunday. That storm system passing the Florida Keys here, just north of Key West, heading right up towards Naples and Fort Myers. That may be the case here as a Category 4 storm. It is going to weaken just a little bit as it moves on in. And there's the chance for the forecast for winds where you see the pink regions. That's what we're talking about, winds gusting over 100 miles an hour. This chart here will show around Fort Myers of winds here with this chart at 122 miles per hour. So a big deal coming on in. Let's take a look at my extended forecast here for the Treasure Valley. I wanted to show you the smoke, and I will tell you a red air quality alert in for tomorrow. Same story tomorrow. I've got 99 here, but I tend to think we'll likely be back towards the mid-90s because of that thick smoke that will be back. But I believe the air quality will improve during the day on Thursday. It will get better on Friday and over the weekend as our wind shifts to the south. The temperatures may actually come down just a little bit more as well, back into the 80s. But all in all, that thick smoke we had yesterday and today, about as bad as it gets. The forecast for tomorrow, the red air quality alert 165. That's unhealthy. We've had some folks in very unhealthy and even hazardous around Idaho City earlier today. So staying indoors, if you don't have to do much over the next day or two, it will get better starting Thursday afternoon.
Stuff like this didn't seem to used to bother me, but it does now. Boy, I'll tell you, and it's bad.
I will say it looks a lot worse on the charts as well than it has in a long time. I've never seen it really look like this in 20 years.
Yeah, let's hope it goes away soon. All right. Thanks, Scotty. Appreciate it. Well, with the Great American Eclipse of 2017 now behind us, many are already looking forward to the next one. But one Boise science teacher is still studying the phenomenon from August with breathtaking images from above. Fox 9 Now's Karen Laird joins us live in studio with, I guess you would say, the longest look you've ever seen.
Yeah, and very high up from above, right? How about 45,000 feet from above the Earth? The local science teacher taking flight, sending a weather balloon high into the atmosphere over the Treasure Valley during the eclipse to record data and images with state-of-the-art technology.
For River Glen Junior High students, school is back in session.
But for science teacher Dr. Paul Verheg, the big lesson of the year started well before this semester.
Designing all this stuff and writing checklists and all that started in February.
6 months of preparations to capture these images from 45,000 feet into the Earth's atmosphere.
And this is the one that had the most interesting pictures.
A weather balloon launch August 21st from the Ontario airport.
And then we sent up cameras, visible light and near infrared,
providing stunning images of the moon's shadow as it greeted the gem state at 2,000 miles an hour.
I knew lots of people would try to look at the eclipse in visible light, but I figured almost no one, and maybe nobody, would look at it through near infrared.
This was Dr. V's 173rd balloon launch, but the rare images the eclipse produced left the seasoned scientist speechless.
Wow, it was great to be able to get, and then actually see a round shadow about 70 miles across, which is the shadow of the moon on the ground.
Something that surprised him, though, was no measurable temperature change in the upper atmosphere during totality.
I was hoping there might be and I could measure it, but the air temperature didn't change. Air temperature on the ground changed, but in near space in the atmosphere, temperature didn't respond at all.
After viewing his first total solar eclipse from the ground and the upper atmosphere, Dr. V is already marking the total eclipse of 2024 on his school calendar, determined to fly again.
It's a school day again, so I'll take the week off. I'll save up my vacation time to do that again.
So for the next total solar eclipse in 2024, Dr. Verheg plans to collect data from Texas and hopes to send even more devices up on that balloon, including a 360-degree camera, hoping to create a time-lapse video of the moon's shadow as it passes over the region. Reporting live in studio, I'm Karen Lair, Fox 9 Now.
South Korea is still flexing its military muscles after another nuclear test by the North. I'm Greg Palcott in Seoul, South Korea. That is my report. Coming up.
Right now in the world, the U.S. will be sending more military equipment to South Korea and Japan. This as the West waits for another anticipated North Korean weapons test. Fox's Greg Palcott has the latest.
A North Korean official promised more, quote, gift packages for the United States if it doesn't back off. This after last weekend's test of an advanced nuclear device that the Kim Jong-un regime claimed was a hydrogen bomb. And amid reports, North Korea is moving yet another intercontinental ballistic missile to a launch site.
We hope all relevant sides can make efforts to avoid an escalation of tensions.
That hope set aside as South Korea is flexing its own military muscle, staging a live-fire military exercise at sea, as President Trump agreed to substantially increase the sale of sophisticated military equipment to South Korea and Japan. And Washington agreed with Seoul to increase the payload limit on South Korea's missiles.
We believe this will be useful for responding to North Korea's nuclear and missile threats.
At Monday's UN Security Council meeting, U.S. Ambassador Nikki Haley demanded the strongest possible measures against the North and issued a stark warning.
His abusive use of missiles and his nuclear threats show that he is begging for war.
Russian President Vladimir Putin, at a regional summit, branded any new sanctions useless and inefficient and had his own warning.
Under these circumstances, winding up of military hysteria will not bring us good. All of this can lead to global catastrophe.
The threat of a conflict with North Korea has prompted Japan to look at ways to evacuate its 60,000 citizens from South Korea. There are some 200,000 Americans in the South, including troops. While the U.S. military drills an evacuation, some here feel many will get caught in the middle.
Here in Seoul, we regularly hear of threats to turn Seoul into a sea of fire. What happens when those threats start emerging on New York or Washington? I don't think there'll be much tolerance in the U.S. for that, and understandably so.
In fact, what we are hearing in a nervous Seoul is that the Trump administration is a wild card as much as anything else. How the U.S. reins in an increasingly aggressive Kim Jong-un could affect all.
And that was Greg Palcott reporting. Now, the Russian Navy launching missiles from the Mediterranean Sea against ISIS objects in Syria. The missiles reportedly fired in accordance with data collected by Russian intelligence. The launch is supporting the Syrian regime, which says its forces have broken through the ISIS siege in the city of Deir ez-Zor. The London-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights is calling it the first step toward liberating the city. An Italian mobster known to some as the king of cocaine has been arrested in Uruguay after more than 2 decades as a fugitive. Rocco Morabito has been on the run since 1995. Authorities say he led mass drug shipping and distribution operations between South America and Milan for years. He was sentenced in absentia to 30 years in prison and awaits extradition to Italy. Cuba is beginning a 5-month political transition that is expected to end the long reign of the Castro family. Nominations are set to begin for political posts starting at the city council level and extending all the way up to state and national assemblies and eventually the president. The nation's current president, 86-year-old Raul Castro, has served since 2008. After his brother and longtime Cuban leader Fidel Castro stepped down. Coming up on Fox 9 Now, Obamacare premiums are going up, and as insurers hit a key deadline today, we'll soon know just how much.
The Fox 9 Now Allergy Report brought to you by Boise Valley Asthma and Allergy Clinic.
Well, no new report yet since we had the holiday, but the Friday report back on September 1st, so this is actually September 1st, we were at 71. And so in the high category, the trend was dropping just a little bit, but the ragweed was showing up a lot more than it had been. But if you're allergic to pollen, you may also be allergic to the smoke. It seems to be affecting people a lot more than the pollen would, so that seems to be trumping this. And so if you do have issues with the smoke as well, you can still call the Boise Valley Asthma and Allergy Clinic, and they can certainly help you out. And certainly staying inside with an air filter will definitely help, Roland.
All right, Scott, thanks very much. In tonight's health report, Congress could not come up with a replacement, so we should be learning soon just how much more Obamacare customers will have to pay for their health insurance next year. As Fox's Doug McKelway tells us, it's not going to be cheap.
Even without the pressing needs of Hurricane Harvey, the budget, the debt ceiling, and tax reform, Congress already had its hands full this month with the nagging reality of Obamacare. Today marks the deadline for insurance companies to set their premium rates for next year's individual market. 9 million middle-class Americans may be facing another health care gut punch with potential rate hikes as high as 20%.
We're also going to see a continued increase in co-payments and deductibles. The amount that people have to pay out of pocket, that's going to continue to rise.
The Republican Congress is in no mood to revisit a repeal and replace bill it couldn't pass after 7 years of promises. But there is one nugget of hope. A bill co-sponsored by Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee Chairman Lamar Alexander and Ranking Member Patty Murray. It would provide desperately needed stability to the insurance markets.
If your house is on fire, you want to put out the fire. And the fire in this case is the individual health insurance market.
The bill has some appeal to Republicans by giving the states flexibility in how they can implement Obamacare. And some Democrats like it because it provides $7 billion to cover low-income people. It would also give insurers some badly needed guidance when little appears to be coming from a dysfunctional Washington.
For insurance, when you're trying to determine your pricing, your premiums, you need to have a sense of which patients you're going to be covering, what kind of health status they have. So with a giant question mark over the individual market, it's very hard to plan and price accordingly.
The Alexander Murray bill is not a cure-all. It does nothing to fix Obamacare's built-in flaw, that older and sicker people with pre-existing conditions continue to flock to the exchanges, while the younger and healthier who were expected to subsidize the less healthy are not. In Washington, Doug McKelway, Fox 9 Now.
So Dr. Jerome Adams is sworn in today as the United States 20th Surgeon General. Nominated for the role by President Donald Trump, Adams is an anesthesiologist who previously served as the Indiana State Health Commissioner. He's also worked as a professor at the Indiana University School of Medicine, and he has a master's degree in public health. Adams says he will prioritize treatment for mental illness, and he has pledged to take on the country's opioid epidemic. The CDC also pledging to do its part in the national fight against opioids, the agency announcing more than $28 million in additional funding to 44 states. Idaho is one of 12 states that will divvy up $4.6 million of those dollars aimed at the so-called data-driven prevention initiative. Still ahead on Fox 9 Now, after announcing plans to quit touring, British crooner Adele may be eyeing an acting opportunity. Making entertainment news, an abysmal weekend box office rounds out a pretty lousy summer for movie theaters. Fox's Michelle Polino has that story and more in tonight's Hollywood Nation.
Adele could be considering a career change after revealing plans to quit touring due to severe stage fright last June. The Brit superstar is reportedly now in talks to make her acting debut, headlining a big screen adaptation of the classic musical Oliver. Tinseltown's finest are joining forces for Hurricane Harvey relief aid. A-listers including Beyoncé, George Clooney, Julia Roberts, Barbra Streisand, and Oprah Winfrey have been tapped to appear on the star-studded Hand in Hand benefit telethon, airing September 12th. Lady Gaga didn't let disappointed fans leave empty-handed after canceling her concert due to illness Monday. The pop diva took to Twitter to apologize and announce that she was sending free pizza to crowds outside her Montreal, Canada hotel room.
You Bob done?
And the box office took a beating over the holiday weekend, scoring the lowest Labor Day numbers in nearly 20 years. The Hitman's Bodyguard held on to the top spot for a third straight week with $10 million, while Annabelle Creation scared up second place with $7 million. Newcomer drama Wind River rounded out the top three with $6 million.
Oh my God.
In Hollywood, Michelle Polino, Fox News.
All right, American actress Meghan Markle is up for the first time about her relationship with Britain's Prince Harry. She's been talking about it in an interview with Vanity Fair. Markle referred to Harry as her boyfriend and described their relationship as a great love story. The star of the TV show Suits has faced a barrage of tabloid attention since her relationship with the prince became public. So much so, in fact, that Kensington Palace put out a statement calling on folks to respect their privacy. Meanwhile, Prince William and Duchess Kate have won a lawsuit against French journalists who published topless photos of Kate back in 2012. The photos were captured while Kate was sunbathing on vacation. The court ruled that each of the defendants must pay fines of up to $60,000. The royals had been asking for nearly $1.8 million. Well, Lego, it seems nearly ubiquitous these days, but it appears everything is not awesome at the Danish toy maker. Ups and downs. The company says it plans to cut 1,400 jobs, roughly 8% of its workforce. This after reporting its first drop in revenue in more than a decade. All right, Dan's here with sports, and boy, we're hearing a lot of rumors about the smoke causing some problems with college games.
Yeah, that could be an interesting weekend up in Pullman, but even more interesting, Brett Rippon will be taking on his childhood favorite team, the Washington State Cougars. We'll have more coming up.
The Fish and Game Forecast is brought to you locally by Corwin Ford.
Under a full moon on Wednesday, September 6th, the first of two very strong good periods begins at 30 minutes past midnight and runs through 4 a.m., peaking at 2:40. A major afternoon good period occurs from 12:45 until 5 p.m., with the late peak at 3 p.m. For more information, go to fox9now.com.
This is Fox 9 Now Sports with Dan Hawk.
This weekend's game with Washington State will be a special one for Boise State's quarterback Brett Rippon. Rippon grew up watching the Cougars play games at Martin Stadium, and his uncle Mark Rippon is a legend on the Palouse and in the pros with the Washington Redskins. Brett, however, decided to take his talents to Idaho and play for the Broncos and make his own legacy. This weekend will be somewhat of a homecoming for Brett as he grew up roughly 75 miles north in Spokane.
Obviously grew up watching a lot of games in Martin Stadium and, going to a lot of Apple Cups and different things like that. Having my Uncle Mark, being in the Hall of Fame over there, it's going to be different, but it'll be fun. Hopefully an Apple Cup, atmosphere. That's what I would hope for. My mom, is rooting for, us no matter what. I think deep down my uncle wants to root for us, just he's got way too many obligations up there.
Saturday's game with the Cougars, the Broncos will be taking on one of the more eccentric college football coaches with Washington State's Mike Leach. Coach Leach has never been shy at speaking his mind on football and various topics. This week was no exception when he was asked if he believes in Bigfoot or aliens at his weekly press conference.
I hope there's Bigfoot. I don't think there is. The reason I don't think there is because we found bones of dinosaurs and everything else, but we haven't found bones that I've heard of Bigfoot. It'd be fun if there's Bigfoot. I hope there's Bigfoot. First of all, like something about lightning strikes mud and then it sparks a beetle or, and all that other business, I don't happen to believe that. To me, it's always been naive. On Earth they say, oh, well, we're the only ones. Really, why? Have you been to the other planets? Have you checked out the other planets?
I couldn't agree with you more, Coach Leach. But Brett Rippon, what do you think?
Bigfoot, that's a myth. You know, it's very naive to say that there's no other life form out there, you know, with all the stuff going on in space.
And how about this? Boise State has announced that they've started a national search for their new head coaching job for baseball. It's been nearly 40 years since the school has had a team. The Broncos cut the varsity sport in 1980. This past April, the school cut the wrestling program in favor of bringing back baseball. Athletic Director Kurt Apsey had this to say about the announcement today. We'd like to have someone in place by the end of 2017. I believe a head coach is going to need a year and a half to assemble a staff and put together a recruiting class. He goes on to say if we can have someone in place by the end of this year, it's absolutely realistic. We'll be seeing the Broncos on the diamond in 2020. And finally, we've reached the final day of our summer golf tips with Boise State Golf. This week's tip comes from the women's side with head coach Nicole Bird.
This week's tip is just to get out and play. It's so beautiful, especially here in the summer in Boise. There's so many great courses that you can play. The grass is green, the air is clear. It's just a fun way to be outside. If you walk, you probably get about 4 to 5 miles of walking in a typical round of golf. It's a great way to spend time with friends and family. Don't be so worried about the etiquette or the rules. You're going to pick those up as you go. Don't worry about people behind you or the pace of the play. You want to keep up with the group in front of you, but just get out there and enjoy it and have a lot of fun.
All right, Roland, you're going to apply for the new job. Do you believe in Bigfoot or do you believe in aliens?
I believe in aliens. No Bigfoot. No. I also have terrible golf etiquette. But let's talk about football one more second, because with all the smoke out there, they're actually considering maybe having a game at the...
Could be a pipe dream that you're starting here. You never know.
Potentially, and it would be between Washington State...
Air quality's not good right now. It's 2:30.
It's terrible, right?
Yep.
And they can't play if it's that bad, right?
That's right.
All right, so we'll see if they move it.
Let the rumor mill begin.
Let the rumor mill begin. Here's a live look outside at downtown Boise from the Grove Hotel. We'll be right back.
More smoke coming up on your out-the-door forecast, folks. Be ready for a day tomorrow just like today.
Get used to it. All right. Good night, everyone.